So you get out your tarot deck, you shuffle and cut the cards, and the first card that you turn up is upside down. What do? We're going to be talking about card reversals this week. That and our Sunday morning spread coming right up. Hello, my friends. Brian No from Cards of Light. Thank you for joining me once again this week for our Sunday morning spread and also a little bit of talk about reverse tarot cards this week on the show. Glad to have you back with me again. If you would, please hit the like button when you get a chance sometime while you're viewing this. And if you're new here, welcome. Please do subscribe so you get all of our content as soon as it comes out. Okay, card reversals. When I first started learning tarot, I obviously knew about card reversals and had them come up sometimes, but didn't really know how to handle them. And it was really with trying to learn all of the cards and trying to just get acquainted with the tarot decks and just get the lay of the land. It was really just too much for me. So I never really read reversals as I was learning, turning up a card a day to begin working with the deck. If a card happened to come up upside down, I would just flip it around the other way. I would also learn kind of about the shadow side of the card. So as I was learning the traditional meanings and journaling about my experience with the cards, sometimes I would focus on sort of the opposite or shadow aspects of a particular card, but I wouldn't actually read reversals, and went to great lengths to make sure that as I shuffled and stuff that the cards were all upright to begin with, and that was just the way that I started out. And as I went along, I began to see lots of times in readings in movies and things like that, people would say, "Oh, it's the Knight of Wands reversed, means X, Y, Z." And I always felt kind of lesser because I wasn't reading reversals. But some of my tarot heroes, like Vince Patici, didn't read reversals. He just, as they would come up, would flip them around the other way. And so it is sort of a complex subject. And what I would like to do is give you a little bit of information about where the idea of reading reversals came from to begin with, some of the pros and cons of that. And the one thing that I would like you to take away from this little chat is that it's okay to not. It doesn't make you a lesser reader. It doesn't make your readings less powerful if you choose not to use reversals. If you want to use them, that's fine too, if they're helpful to you. Nothing wrong with doing it either way, though. And a lot of the great readers in the history of tarot did not read them, and some of the great ones did as well. So let's dig into this a little bit. First of all, the history of this. In the late 1700s, Etienne, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, was one of the early, kind of set the foundation, along with Eliphas Levi, of using these cards for something other than a parlor game. In his spreads, he did write about using reversals and the meanings of reversals and stuff. Waite's book on the pictorial guide to tarot does include descriptions of reversals. But two other prominent Golden Dawn members, Mathers and Crowley, did not read reversals. They used something called elemental dignity instead. So this would be if you had two cards from the same suit show up in a spread, then those would be considered to be very well dignified. A card from one suit with a suit that is not opposing it, going up in the same uh, spread would still be dignified, just not as well dignified. But if you had like a wands card and a cups card, that would be maybe considered ill dignified. And so they could either be very well dignified or kind of neutral or really opposed to each other. And they would interpret the cards based on that. Uh, Here's kind of the negatives of using reversals. First of all, you've got to memorize a lot more. It's not as simple as reversing the upright meaning of the card. So there's just a lot of information that you have to have command of there, and there are kind of other ways I think to skin that cat. Uh, you need to be very skilled, very experienced if you're gonna read reversals. Also, as a card is upside down, if you're reading for others, that can kind of unsettle the corner. It can unsettle. It can be a distraction. Like, ooh, what does that mean? Um, and frankly, with some decks, it's hard to tell. If you're dealing with a Marseille deck, uh, some of those pip cards, depending on the suit, it is particularly with coins. That suit, it is sometimes difficult to tell whether or not a card is reversed. And so there are, it just makes things a lot more challenging and difficult to do. The plus side is that it can add an additional layer of depth to your readings. Uh, and some of the reference materials out there will give you specific interpretations and specific ways to read reverse cards. So, particularly if you've got some experience with the cards already, it is something that is possible to do, and it can give you some additional layers of meaning. But I think, for me at least, there's already so much there on the table when we're working with these cards that it's not necessary. I don't think that it adds anything or would add anything to the readings that I do. The way I handle it, if a card turns up upside down, uh, I just flip it around the other way. And I don't have any concerns about doing that. And I don't feel like that's a bad thing to do. And if someone were to ask me about that when I'm reading for them, I would just say, yeah, I don't read reversals. I just flip them around. Uh, I think for me, it comes down to it's just not my vibe. It sometimes, depending on the reader, if I'm watching other readings, depending on how they handle it, it can sometimes seem maybe more showy than helpful, like someone trying to show off all of their knowledge and that kind of stuff with the cards, and it can get in the way of the reading. Now, if it's done very naturally, if someone just says, "Oh, with this card reversed, I take that to mean blah blah blah," then I think that there's nothing wrong with doing it either way. I guess is the point. Let me give you an example, uh, kind of in real life, of how this can work out. The Six of Cups, uh, we can think of as auspicious. Uh, it is sixes generally are auspicious cards. And in the case of this Six of Cups card, we would think of that as continuity. Sometimes it can be nostalgia, but kind of a connection with things that have come before, and kind of a natural, continuous unfolding of energies. The flip side of that might be something along the lines of monotony or nostalgia that isn't serving us well, an inability to kind of get past things that are past. And so uh, those would be the way that if I were reading reversals that I tend to read a six is upright is continuity, reversed is maybe monotony or a preoccupation with the past, that sort of thing. If you're not reading reversals, though, and that card comes up, depending on the other cards on the table and the question at hand and all of that, you could still read that card's energy as monotony if you wanted. You could still read it as if it were reversed. And there's nothing wrong with doing it that way either. So uh, I'll link to some other material on this that might be helpful to you. And if you have got questions or thoughts on reading reversals, if you're a reader and you approach this completely differently, then I'd like to hear from you. Please leave comments here for the benefit of the other folks as well. Or if you want to do a video response, if you do YouTube stuff, you're welcome to do that as well. Uh, but I think the bottom line for me is it's okay either way, and it certainly does not make you make your readings any less valid or make you somehow less of a card reader if you choose to just say, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to worry about reversals. I think it does help to understand kind of the shadow side of each of these cards as you're going along. And if you dig into the elemental dignities and all of that kind of stuff, that can bring a whole new layer of richness to your readings that, for me at least, is even more powerful than just the, kind of the random chance of whether or not they turn up upside down or right side up. Anyway, uh, I hope that this is helpful. Again, I would love to hear your comments. You can either leave them here with the video or pop on out to the weblog at atarotjourney.com and get in touch with me there. My contact information is on that site. Let's go now to the table for our tarot card reading for the week to come. Okay, the table has been set and the cards have been dealt for our tarot card reading for the week to come. And we've got 4 cards. We are looking at the 4 dimensions of life, the physical, social, emotional, mental, and spiritual dimensions. And we have 2 majors and 2 pip cards, both from the suit of cups this time around. Let's take these one at a time. So this devil card over here in the physical dimension, this is the zodiacal trump of Capricorn. And so it is about impulses and the sorts of impulses that are nearly overwhelming to us. These are the impulses that we need to survive in the world, but they are also impulses that can become compulsions and that can prod us into actions that are not helpful to us sometimes. So there's a fine line there between survival and creativity and all of that, and just repeating the same mistakes over and over, and things that lead us to difficulties in our lives. Coming as this does in the physical dimension, I think it is a cue to tune into those moments when we have overwhelming physical sensations that are driving us to do something. So a mundane example would be, gee, I'm hungry, and then we go maybe eat things that aren't all that healthy. Or other sorts of urges, but it could also be something as just an overwhelming desire for a dopamine rush, where we want to buy that thing, or we're just driven to some sort of action that we're not even thinking about. And so when we feel that in this coming week, when we have one of those moments, if we could just take a few quiet breaths and sort of rein that in a little bit and ask ourselves the question, look, is this really in my best interest? Am I really serving my highest values and my health and all that? And particularly since this is in the physical dimension, it may be related to health. It may also be a financial matter. Do we really need to purchase the thing, at this point? Even if we're really feeling like, oh, I really, that's cool, I really want that, we may want to just sort of rein things in a little bit. This card can also, though, be about the will to proceed against the odds towards something that really is aligned with our highest self and our deepest values. And so it just requires some discernment. But I would say the main message for this week with this one is when we get that strong urge to do something, just take some breaths and ask ourselves those questions. Over here, in the social emotional dimension, we have the Empress. And this is the card of the beautiful, loving, nurturing Earth Mother. And I always, when I see this card, personally take it as a cue to get out in the outdoors, to breathe some fresh air, get into some green spaces, go take a walk, that sort of thing. Coming as this does in the social emotional dimension, though, this week, I would say that it is about our roles in nurturing others, that we want to do our best to bring happiness and beauty and safety and good fortune and all of that to the others in our lives that we care about the most. And so, pretty simple, straightforward message there, I think, with that card this week. We get up here into the mental dimension and we have this Nine of Cups card. And this is an auspicious card. It is about success, pleasure, physical well-being, general, happiness and contentment. It's styled happiness in this Thoth deck. Coming as it does in the mental dimension of our lives, I think it is a reminder to focus our attention on the things that that we can be grateful for, and the things that we can be happy about, the things that we take pleasure in, and to at the same time not overindulge in those. And kind of paired with this card down here with the Devil card, we really need to keep a rein on our impulses. So we do want to focus our attention on the things that bring us pleasure, but we don't want to fall into the trap of overindulgence. And this card over here is like putting the exclamation point on that message. The Seven of Cups is about distractions and overindulgence and intoxication and that sort of thing. It's styled debauch here in the Thoth deck, and I mentioned over and over that this card reminds me of that feeling of just having overindulged, and that the kind of nausea and headaches and stuff that brings, sometimes with a little bit of delay, but we can scoot over the edge of, oh, this is cool, to, oh, I don't feel so good, pretty easy. And so coming in the mental dimension with the Nine of Cups and the spiritual dimension with that Seven, and then paired with this Devil card over here, we really need to be careful to not just fall into the trap of overindulgence and of following unhealthy impulses and compulsion this week. Let's get outside, let's get grounded, let's spend our time reflecting on how we can be nurturing and helpful to others. Let's focus our attention on the things that are good in our life. And let's not fall prey to the temptations that are maybe momentarily going to be pleasurable, but in the long run going to cause us problems. That's the way I would see these. That'll do it for this week. I appreciate you joining me once again. And again, if you haven't done so already, please do click like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. We will be back again next week with more for you. And in the meantime, as always, I wish you peace. Take care of yourself.